Jake Harrison pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship. His breath made fog on the glass as he stared at the huge space station ahead. Harmony Point was the biggest thing he had ever seen. It looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with long arms reaching out in all directions. Lights blinked along its surface like stars. "First time seeing it?" asked Dr. Lisa Carter, sitting next to him. She was older than Jake and had been to space many times before. "Yeah," Jake said, still looking out the window. "It's amazing." The ship shook a little as it moved closer to the station. Jake was nervous. He was only 26 years old, and this was his first big job as a diplomat. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 3 years. Most of the other aliens had been working together for hundreds or thousands of years. "Don't worry," Lisa said with a smile. "Just be yourself. That's what humans do best." Their ship, the New Horizon, moved slowly into one of the station's docking bays. Jake could see other ships from different worlds. Some looked like Earth ships, but others were very strange. One ship looked like it was made of crystal. Another one seemed to be moving like it was alive. When they got off the ship, Jake was hit by how big everything was inside the station. The ceiling was so high he could not see the top. There were walkways and bridges going in all directions. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked around, talking in languages Jake had never heard. "Stay close to the group," said Commander Alex Mitchell, the leader of their small Earth team. "We don't want anyone getting lost on the first day." They walked through long hallways toward the main meeting area. Jake saw aliens everywhere. Some looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra arms. Others were completely different. He saw a group of beings that looked like they were made of light. They moved like ghosts floating just above the ground. "Those are the energy folk from the Bright Star system," Lisa whispered to Jake. "They don't have solid bodies like us." Near a food area, Jake saw some aliens that looked like giant bugs talking to others that looked like they were made of living water. Everyone seemed to be getting along well. They were laughing and sharing stories. The Earth team reached the main hall and Jake's mouth fell open. It was huge. The room could have fit 10 football fields inside it. The ceiling was like a dome and it showed the stars outside. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, all talking and moving around. "Welcome to the Galactic Assembly," Alex said. "This happens once a year. Every species sends people here to meet and make friends." Jake watched as aliens walked around in small groups. He saw partnerships forming everywhere. 2 different species would talk, shake hands or touch in their own way, and then exchange some kind of documents. It looked like everyone was finding someone to work with. "What are they doing?" Jake asked. "Making partnerships," Lisa explained. "Cultural exchanges, trade deals, research projects. It's like a big meeting where everyone tries to find new friends and business partners." Jake looked around and noticed something strange. In one corner of the huge room, there was a booth that looked very fancy, but no one was near it. The booth was decorated with dark blue cloth and silver stars. Behind it stood a tall figure in a long robe. "Who is that?" Jake asked, pointing toward the lonely booth. Lisa looked where he was pointing and her face became serious. "That's Queen Lyrelei of the Sanguinar Empire. Her people are called the Vorthak. Why is no one talking to her?" Lisa looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Her people are different. They need to absorb life energy to survive. Most aliens call them vampires and are afraid of them." Jake looked at the queen again. Even from far away, he could see she had pale silver skin and long dark hair. She stood very straight like she was proud, but there was something sad about the way she stood alone. As Jake watched, he saw other aliens walk past her booth. Some would look at her and then quickly walk away. Others would whisper to their friends and point. A few aliens made faces like they smelled something bad. The queen never moved. She just stood there, watching everyone else make friends and partnerships. Her booth had signs and displays about her empire, but no one stopped to read them. "That's not fair," Jake said. "What's not fair?" Alex asked, walking over to them. "Everyone is finding partners except her. No one will even talk to her." Alex looked at the queen's booth. The Vorthak have been part of the galactic community for a long time, but most species still don't trust them. Old fears die hard, but she's here, right? That means she wants to be part of things. "Yes, but wanting and getting are 2 different things," Alex said sadly. Jake watched as a group of crystal beings walked past the queen's booth. They looked at her displays for a moment, but then one of them said something and they all hurried away. The queen's shoulders dropped just a little bit, but she kept standing straight. The opening ceremony began a few minutes later. A tall alien with 4 arms and blue skin walked to the center of the room. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Welcome, friends from across the galaxy," he said. "Today we begin another year of friendship and cooperation. May you all find the partnerships you seek," everyone cheered. Jake cheered too, but he kept looking at Queen Lyrelei. She was clapping politely, but she was still alone. As the ceremony continued, Jake watched more and more partnerships form around the room. The crystal beings found partners with some floating gas creatures. The bug-like aliens made friends with a group of robot-looking beings. Even some very strange aliens that looked like walking trees found others to work with. But Queen Lyrelei remained alone at her booth. When the ceremony ended, aliens began moving around the room again. Jake saw the queen organizing her displays, getting ready for people to come and visit. But instead of walking toward her booth, the crowds moved away from her area. "This isn't right," Jake said to himself. Lisa heard him. "What are you thinking, Jake?" "I'm thinking maybe it's time someone went over there and said hello." Alex put his hand on Jake's shoulder. "Be careful. We're new here. We don't want to make enemies on our first day. We also don't want to make friends by ignoring someone who needs one," Jake replied. He looked at Queen Lyrelei one more time. She was arranging some books on her table, probably hoping someone would come and ask about them. Her movements were careful and precise, like she had done this many times before. Jake made up his mind. Tomorrow he would go talk to the vampire queen that everyone else was afraid of. Maybe she wasn't as scary as everyone thought. Maybe she just needed someone to give her a chance. As the Earth team left the main hall to go to their rooms, Jake looked back at Queen Lyrelei one last time. She was still standing at her booth watching everyone else leave in their new partnerships. "Tomorrow," Jake whispered to himself. "Tomorrow I'll go say hello." Jake woke up early on the second day of the assembly. He had not slept well because he kept thinking about Queen Lyrelei standing alone at her booth. He got dressed quickly and went to find some breakfast. The eating area was full of aliens trying different foods from different worlds. Jake got some Earth food and sat with Lisa and Alex. They were looking at a schedule of events for the day. "There are lots of workshops today," Lisa said. "I want to go to the one about medical technology." "I'm going to the military defense meeting," Alex said. "What about you, Jake?" Jake looked at the schedule. Most of the workshops were about boring things like trade rules and space law, but one caught his eye. It was called Ancient Civilizations and Lost Technologies, and it was happening in 1 hour. "I think I'll go to this one," Jake said, pointing at the workshop. Lisa read the description. It says Queen Lyrelei is giving a presentation about Vorthak history. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," Jake said. "I want to learn about her people." Alex looked worried. "Just be careful, okay? We don't know much about their customs yet." After breakfast, Jake found his way to the workshop room. It was much smaller than the main hall, with only about 50 seats. But when Jake walked in, he was surprised to see that most of the seats were empty. Only 6 other aliens were there, and they were sitting far apart from each other. At the front of the room was a large screen and a speaking area. Queen Lyrelei stood there checking her equipment. She was wearing a different robe today. This one was dark purple with silver patterns. Her long, dark hair was pulled back, and Jake could see her face clearly for the first time. She was beautiful, but in a strange way. Her skin was very pale, almost white like moonlight. Her eyes were dark red like deep wine. When she smiled while testing her microphone, Jake could see that her teeth were a little longer and sharper than human teeth. Jake sat in the 3rd row, closer than any of the other aliens. Queen Lyrelei noticed him and their eyes met for a moment. She looked surprised to see him there. The workshop began right on time. Queen Lyrelei stepped up to speak, and her voice was clear and strong. "Good morning," she said. "I am Queen Lyrelei of the Sanguinar Empire. Today I will tell you about my people, the Vorthak, and our long history in this galaxy." The screen behind her lit up with pictures of beautiful cities and strange machines. Jake leaned forward in his seat, very interested. "The Vorthak have lived among the stars for 50,000 years, the Queen continued. "We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have kept records of great discoveries and terrible wars. We are the memory keepers of the galaxy." She showed pictures of huge libraries filled with millions of books and data crystals. She talked about how her people had saved the history of dozens of other species when their worlds were destroyed by wars or natural disasters. "Many species fear us because we are Different, Queen Lyrelai said. But we have always tried to help others learn from the past so they can build a better future. Jake was amazed by what he was learning. The Vorthak were not scary monsters. They were historians and scientists. They had spent thousands of years collecting knowledge and keeping it safe. The Queen showed them examples of Vorthak art and music. The pictures were beautiful, full of swirling colors and complex patterns. When she played a recording of their music, it was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was sad and beautiful at the same time, like the sound of wind through ancient forests. We also study what you might call life energy, Queen Lyrelai explained. All living things produce a type of energy that most species cannot see or feel. We can sense this energy, and we can absorb small amounts of it to survive. One of the alien listeners, a short creature with green skin, raised his hand. Is it true that you drink blood? Queen Lyrelai's face became sad. No, that is not true. We do not harm other beings to survive. We absorb only the energy that naturally flows from all living things. It is like how plants absorb sunlight. We take only what is freely given by the universe. The green alien nodded but still looked nervous. The presentation continued for another 30 minutes. Queen Lyrelai showed them ancient star maps that her people had made, and she talked about scientific discoveries that had helped many species travel through space more safely. When the presentation ended, Jake wanted to clap, but he noticed that the other aliens were just sitting quietly. A few of them got up and left right away without saying anything. The others followed quickly. Soon Jake was the only one left in the room. Queen Lyrelai began packing up her materials. She moved slowly like she was tired. Jake could tell that she was used to people leaving without talking to her. Jake stood up and walked toward the front of the room. Queen Lyrelai looked up when she heard his footsteps. "Your Majesty," Jake said, trying to remember how to be polite to a queen. He gave a small bow like he had seen in movies. Queen Lyrelai stopped packing and stared at him. "You stayed for the entire presentation?" "Of course," Jake said. "It was really interesting. I had no idea that your people had done so much to help others." The Queen's red eyes grew wide with surprise. You found it interesting?" "Yes, very much. I'm Jake Harrison, by the way. I'm from the Earth delegation." Jake held out his hand for a handshake, then stopped. "Oh, sorry. I should have asked first. Is it okay to shake hands with your people?" For the first time since Jake had seen her, Queen Lyrelai smiled. It was a real smile, not the polite one she had worn during her presentation. "Yes, it is acceptable," she said. She reached out and shook Jake's hand. Her skin was warm, not cold like he had expected. "I am Queen Lyrelai of the Sanguinar Empire, but I suppose you already know that." "I do, but it's nice to meet you properly," Jake said. "Your presentation was amazing. 50,000 years of history. That's incredible." "Most beings do not think so," Queen Lyrelai said quietly. "They're too afraid of what they think we are to learn about what we really are." "Well, they're missing out," Jake said. "I would love to learn more about your people and your empire." Queen Lyrelai's face lit up. "You would? Really?" "Yes, absolutely. Do you have any books or information I could read?" The Queen quickly went to her bag and pulled out a small crystal device. "This contains basic information about Vorthak culture and history. It will work with your human computers." Jake took the crystal carefully. "Thank you. This is really kind of you." "No, thank you," Queen Lyrelai said. It has been a long time since anyone showed interest in learning about my people." They talked for a few more minutes. Jake learned that Queen Lyrelai was over 3,000 years old, but she looked young because her people lived much longer than humans. She told him about her empire, which included dozens of worlds where Vorthak lived peacefully with other species. "We are not the monsters that others think we are," she said. "We value knowledge, art, and peace above all things." "I can see that," Jake said. "Maybe other people will see it too, given time." As they talked, Jake noticed other aliens walking past the open door of the workshop room. When they saw Jake talking with Queen Lyrelai, they stopped and stared. Some of them whispered to each other and pointed. Jake ignored them and kept talking with the Queen. But he could see that their attention was making Queen Lyrelai nervous. "I should let you go," she said finally. "You probably have other workshops to attend." "Actually, I don't," Jake said. "Would you like to get some lunch? I could show you the Earth food section in the dining area." Queen Lyrelai looked shocked. "You want to eat lunch with me? In public? Why not? Food is better when you share it with someone interesting." The Queen was quiet for a moment, like she was trying to decide something important. Finally, she nodded. "I would like that very much," she said. As they walked toward the dining area together, Jake noticed that other aliens stared at them. Some looked curious, others looked worried, and a few looked angry. But Jake did not care. He had made a new friend, and she seemed like a good person who had been alone for too long. "Tell me about Earth," Queen Lirelei said as they walked. "Your species is very new to the galactic community." "We are," Jake agreed. "But we're learning fast, and one thing we humans are good at is making friends with people who are different from us." Queen Lirelei smiled again. "I think I am beginning to understand why your species was accepted into the galactic community so quickly." Jake smiled back. Maybe this assembly would be different for Queen Lirelei. Maybe she would not have to stand alone at her booth anymore. And maybe the galaxy would learn that being different did not mean being dangerous. The next few days changed everything for Queen Lirelei. Jake kept his promise and visited her booth every day. At first, she seemed surprised each time he showed up. But soon she began to expect him, and Jake could see that she was happier. On the third day, Jake brought Lisa with him to meet the Queen. "Your Majesty," Jake said, "I would like you to meet Dr. Lisa Carter. She is our team's scientist who studies different alien species." Queen Lirelei stood up from behind her booth and gave a polite bow. "Dr. Carter, it is an honor to meet you." Lisa looked a little nervous at first, but she smiled. "The honor is mine, Your Majesty. Jake has told me wonderful things about your people's scientific work." "You are interested in science?" Queen Lirelei asked, and her eyes became bright with excitement. "Very much so. Jake mentioned that your people study life energy. I work with biology and medicine, so I would love to learn more." Queen Lirelei's whole face changed. She looked like a child who had just been given the best present ever. "Please, sit down. I have so much to show you." She pulled out several data crystals and a small device that created pictures in the air above the table. The pictures showed complex diagrams of how life energy moved through different types of beings. "All living things produce what we call bioenergy," Queen Lirelei explained. "It flows through their bodies like blood or water. Most species cannot see it, but we can." Lisa leaned forward, very interested. "Can you control this energy?" "In small ways, yes. We can help healing happen faster, or we can sense when someone is sick before they know it themselves. It is how we have lived so long and stayed healthy." "That's incredible," Lisa said. "Do you think this could help with medical treatments?" "I believe so," Queen Lirelei said. "But no one has ever wanted to work with us to find out." Lisa looked at Jake, then back at the Queen. "Would you be willing to share this knowledge? I mean, if we could set up some kind of research partnership?" Queen Lirelei was quiet for a moment. Jake could see tears forming in her red eyes. "You would want to work with us?" she asked softly. "Of course," Lisa said. "Science is about learning, no matter where the knowledge comes from." That afternoon, Jake brought Commander Alex to meet Queen Lirelei, too. Alex was more careful than Lisa, but he was polite and professional. "I understand your people have very advanced ship defense systems," Alex said. "Yes," Queen Lirelei replied. "Our ships can sense attacks before they happen by reading the energy patterns of weapons and other ships. That must make space travel much safer for your people." "It does. We have not lost a ship to pirates or accidents in over 500 years. Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Would your people be interested in sharing this technology? Not for weapons, but for protecting trade ships and exploration vessels?" Again, Queen Lirelei looked surprised. "You would trust us with your ship designs?" "If you trusted us with yours, yes," Alex said simply. By the fourth day, word had spread around the assembly that the humans were spending time with the Vorthak Queen. Other aliens began to take notice. Some were curious, others were worried. Jake was eating lunch with Queen Lirelei when a tall alien with lizard-like skin approached their table. Jake recognized him as Ambassador Kelrin from the Dominion Coalition, one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. "Young human," Ambassador Kelrin said, his voice deep and serious. "May I speak with you privately?" Jake looked at Queen Lirelei. She nodded and said, "It is all right. I understand." Jake followed Ambassador Kelrin to a quiet corner of the dining area. "You are making a mistake," Kelrin said without any polite greetings. "You do not understand what you are dealing with." "I'm dealing with a person who has been treated unfairly," Jake replied. "Queen Lirelei has been nothing but kind and helpful." "The Vorthak are dangerous," Kelrin insisted. "They feed on life energy. They are parasites. They absorb energy that living things naturally give off, Jake said. Dr. Carter has studied their biology. It's no more harmful than humans breathing air. You have known them for 3 days, Kelron said, his eyes narrowing. My people have dealt with them for thousands of years. We know what they are capable of. Maybe the problem is not what they are capable of, but what you think they are capable of, Jake said. Kelron's face became angry. Your species is new here, human. You should listen to those who have more experience. Our species may be new, but we know something about being judged unfairly, Jake replied. Maybe it is time for some fresh thinking. Kelron stared at Jake for a long moment. You will regret this, he said finally, and walked away. When Jake returned to the table, Queen Lyreley was staring down at her food. He warned you about me, did he not? She asked quietly. He tried to, Jake said, sitting down, but I make my own decisions about people. You should know, Queen Lyreley said, still not looking up, that Ambassador Kelron speaks for many species. The Dominion Coalition has great power in the galactic community. Are you trying to scare me away? Jake asked. Finally, Queen Lyreley looked up at him. I am trying to protect you. Your friendship means more to me than you know, but I do not want it to hurt your people's future in the galaxy. Let me worry about that, Jake said. Besides, I think you underestimate humans. We are pretty good at standing up for what we believe in. That evening, Jake noticed that more aliens were visiting Queen Lyreley's booth. A group of scholars from the Etherian Council came to ask about historical records. Some crystal beings wanted to know about energy research. Even a few members of smaller species stopped to look at her displays. But Jake also noticed that some aliens were watching him and his team more carefully. The Dominion Coalition members would stare at them from across the room and whisper among themselves. We are making waves, Alex said when the Earth team met that night to discuss the day. Good waves or bad waves? Jake asked. Both, Lisa said. I have had 3 different species ask me about our research partnership with Queen Lyreley. 2 of them want to join the research. One of them warned me to be careful. What did you tell them? I told them that science does not care about politics, Lisa said with a smile. Alex looked more serious. I have been approached by several military leaders. Some want to know about Vorthak defense technology. Others are worried that we are sharing human technology with the wrong people. What do you think? Jake asked. Alex was quiet for a moment. I think Queen Lyreley has been honest with us about everything. I also think that some very powerful people do not want things to change. So what do? We keep doing what we think is right, Alex said. But we need to be smart about it. The next day, Jake arrived at Queen Lyreley's booth to find her talking with a group of young aliens from different species. They were asking her questions about Vorthak art and music. These are students from the Galactic University, Queen Lyreley explained to Jake. They are writing papers about different cultures. Jake smiled as he watched the Queen answer their questions. She was patient and kind, explaining complex ideas in simple ways. The students were clearly fascinated by what they were learning. When the students left, Queen Lyreley turned to Jake with the biggest smile he had seen from her yet. Did you see that? She asked excitedly. They were not afraid. They just wanted to learn. Young people are often more open to new ideas, Jake said. Maybe change starts with them. Maybe it starts with anyone who is brave enough to reach out their hand, Queen Lyreley replied, looking directly at Jake. As the day continued, Jake noticed something important happening. The aliens who visited Queen Lyreley's booth were starting to talk to other aliens about what they had learned. Information about the real Vorthak culture was spreading through the assembly. Some aliens remained suspicious, especially the older ones from the Dominion Coalition. But others were beginning to ask questions and show interest. Change is slow, Queen Lyreley said as they watched a group of trade representatives examine her displays. But I have lived for 3,000 years. I know that even the smallest changes can grow into something big. How long have you been coming to these assemblies? Jake asked. This is my 43rd assembly, Queen Lyreley said. For 42 years I have stood at this booth alone, hoping that someone would want to learn about my people. And now? Queen Lyreley looked around at all the aliens who were visiting her booth, reading her information and asking questions. Now I have hope, she said, because of one human who was not afraid to say hello. Jake felt proud, but also nervous. He could see that their friendship was changing things at the assembly. Some changes were good, but others might be dangerous. Ambassador Kelrin and his allies were clearly not happy about what was happening. But as Jake watched Queen Lyralee talk with excitement to a group of alien scientists, he knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply treat someone with kindness when everyone else treats them with fear. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for that kind of change. On the 5th day of the assembly, everything changed. Jake woke up to find Alex waiting for him in the hallway outside his room. Alex's face was serious and worried. "We have a problem," Alex said. "Ambassador Kelrin has called for a formal debate." "A debate about what?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "About whether species with what he calls parasitic tendencies should be allowed full participation in galactic society. He is challenging Queen Lyralee's right to be here." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Can he do that?" "Unfortunately, yes. Any member of the Dominion Coalition can call for a formal review of another species' status. It is an old rule that has not been used in over 100 years. They walked quickly toward the main hall. Lisa was waiting for them there, looking upset. "How many species are supporting Kelron?" Jake asked. 12 so far, Lisa said. "All members of the Dominion Coalition. But that is enough to force the debate. What happens if they win?" Alex's face became even more serious. The Vorthek could be banned from all future assemblies. They could lose their trading rights. Essentially, they would be isolated from the galactic community. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "This is not fair. Queen Lyralee has done nothing wrong." "Fair or not, it is happening," Alex said. "The debate is scheduled for tomorrow in the main amphitheater." They found Queen Lyralee at her booth, but she was not setting up displays like usual. Instead, she was packing everything away. Her movements were slow and sad. "Your Majesty," Jake said, approaching carefully. "We heard about the debate." Queen Lyralee looked up at him with tired eyes. "Yes, Ambassador Kelrin has made his challenge official." "You are not giving up, are you?" Jake asked. "Perhaps it would be better if I did," Queen Lyralee said quietly. "My presence here is causing trouble. The last thing I want is for other species to fight because of me." "But that is exactly what Kelron wants," Jake said. "He wants you to leave quietly so he does not have to face the truth about your people." "What truth?" Queen Lyralee asked. "That the fear of your people is based on old lies and misunderstandings. That you have spent thousands of years trying to help the galaxy, and you have been pushed away because of prejudice." Queen Lyralee stopped packing and looked at Jake. "You think I should fight this challenge?" "I think you should defend your people," Jake said. "They deserve to have their real story told." "I have tried to tell our story for 43 years, Queen Lyralee said sadly. "No one has wanted to listen." "People are listening now," Lisa said, stepping forward. "Jake is right. You have to fight this." Queen Lyralee looked around at the 3 humans. "You would stand with me, even knowing it might hurt your people's position in the galactic community?" "Yes," Jake said without hesitation. "That is what friends do." For the first time in days, Queen Lyralee smiled. But then her face became worried again. "I do not know if I can do this," she said. "I have faced this kind of hatred for so long. I am tired of fighting battles I cannot win." Jake thought for a moment. Then he had an idea. "What if you did not have to fight alone?" he asked. "What do you mean?" "Assembly rules allow allied species to speak for each other in formal debates, right?" Jake looked at Alex. Alex nodded slowly. "Yes, but humans and Vorthak are not formally allied." "Yet," Jake said. "But we could request permission to speak on behalf of the Vorthak as a friendly species." "It has been done before." Queen Lyralee stared at Jake in shock. "You would speak for my people in the debate?" "If you would let me, yes." "Jake," Alex said carefully, "you are asking to speak in front of hundreds of species leaders about politics you barely understand. This could affect humanity's future in the galactic community." "I know," Jake said, "but this is bigger than politics. This is about doing what is right." Queen Lyralee's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for us?" Jake thought about all the conversations he had had with Queen Lyralee over the past few days. He thought about her kindness, her intelligence, and the loneliness she had carried for so long. "Because someone needs to," he said simply. "And because I believe that the galaxy will be a better place when people stop judging others based on fear." That afternoon, Jake formally requested permission to speak on behalf of the Vorthak in the debate. The request caused a stir throughout the assembly. Many aliens were shocked that such a young species would take sides in such an important debate. Ambassador Kelran was furious. He came to find Jake personally. "This is foolish," Kelran said, his lizard-like eyes glowing with anger. "You are risking everything your species has worked for." "We are standing up for what we believe in," Jake replied. "I thought that was something the galactic community would respect." "You do not understand the history here," Kelran insisted. "The Vorthak are dangerous. They have been contained for good reasons." "Contained?" Jake asked. "Or isolated because of fear and prejudice?" "You will regret this decision," Kelran said and stormed away. That evening, Jake spent hours preparing for the debate. Queen Lyrale helped him understand the history of her people and the accusations that had been made against them over the centuries. "Many of the fears come from ancient times," she explained. "Thousands of years ago, some Vorthak did abuse their abilities. They took more energy than they needed and harmed other beings. But that was long ago, and those Vorthak were punished by their own people." "Why did no one ever tell this story?" Jake asked. "Because the galaxy preferred to believe we were all monsters," Queen Lyrale said sadly. "It was easier than admitting they might have been wrong." "Well, tomorrow they are going to hear the truth," Jake said. Late that night, Jake could not sleep. He walked to the observation deck of the station and looked out at the stars. Queen Lyrale was there, standing alone and looking out at space. "Cannot sleep either?" she asked when she heard him approach. "Too nervous," Jake admitted. "I keep thinking about everything that could go wrong tomorrow." "I have been thinking too," Queen Lyrale said. "About all the years I have been alone at these assemblies. About all the times I hoped someone would give my people a chance. And I realize that even if we lose tomorrow, something important has already happened. For the first time in decades, someone has been willing to stand up and say that the Vorthak deserve to be treated fairly." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. "Jake," Queen Lyrale said finally, "whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that your friendship has meant everything to me. You have given me hope that I thought I had lost forever. We're going to win tomorrow," Jake said confidently. "I am going to make sure the galaxy understands who you really are. And if they do not want to understand?" Jake looked at Queen Lyrale's reflection in the window. Even in the dim light, he could see the determination in her red eyes. "Then they will have to explain why they are so afraid of learning the truth," he said. The next morning would bring the biggest challenge of Jake's life. He would have to stand in front of hundreds of alien species leaders and defend people he had known for less than a week. But he felt ready. He had truth on his side, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. As they walked back to their rooms, Jake made a promise to himself. No matter what happened in the debate, he would make sure that Queen Lyrale never had to stand alone again. The galaxy was big enough for everyone, including a species that had been misunderstood for far too long. Tomorrow would decide whether the galaxy was ready to move beyond its old fears and prejudices. Jake intended to help them make the right choice. The main amphitheater was packed. Jake had never seen so many different alien species in one place. The huge room had seats going up in circles like a giant bowl. Every seat was filled. Representatives from over 300 species had come to watch the debate. Jake sat in the front row with the Earth delegation. His hands were shaking a little, but he tried to look calm. Queen Lyrale sat across the room with the few species that had shown support for the Vorthak. She looked proud and strong, but Jake could see the worry in her red eyes. Ambassador Kelran stood at the center of the amphitheater. His blue robes made him look important and powerful. Behind him sat the 12 members of the Dominion Coalition, who supported his challenge. "Friends of the galaxy," Kelran began, his voice loud and clear, "we gather today to discuss a serious matter. The question before us is simple. Should species with dangerous abilities be allowed full membership in our community?" Murmurs went through the crowd. Some aliens nodded in agreement with Kelran. Others looked uncomfortable. "The Vorthak feed on life energy," Kelran continued. "They are parasites who take what others need to survive. Their very nature makes them a threat to peaceful species." Kelran talked for 20 minutes. He told old stories about Vorthak who had hurt other aliens thousands of years ago. He said that the Vorthak's long lives gave them unfair advantages in trade and politics. He argued that their ability to sense life energy made them dangerous spies. For the safety of all peaceful species, Kelran concluded, the Vorthak should be removed from the galactic community. They are simply too dangerous to trust. When Kelrin finished speaking, many aliens clapped. Jake felt his heart sink. The Dominion coalition was powerful, and Kelrin was a good speaker. Then it was Jake's turn. He stood up slowly and walked to the center of the amphitheater. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him. He was just a young human from a species that had been part of the galaxy for only 3 years. Why should anyone listen to him? Jake looked up at Queen Lyrelai. She gave him a small nod of encouragement. "My name is Jake Harrison," he began, his voice echoing in the huge room. "I represent humanity, and I speak today on behalf of our friends, the Vorthak." Some aliens made surprised noises. The word friends seemed to shock them. "Ambassador Kelrin talks about danger and fear," Jake continued. "But I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about prejudice." Jake looked around the room. 3 years ago, humanity asked to join the galactic community. Some of you were not sure about us. We were young, aggressive, and we had fought many wars on our own world. Some species thought we were too dangerous to trust. A few aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But other species gave us a chance. They looked past their fears and learned who we really were. They discovered that humans could be loyal friends and valuable partners. Today, we are proud members of this community because someone was willing to see beyond their first impressions. Jake paused and looked at Queen Lyrelai again. The Vorthak deserve the same chance that humanity was given. Yes, they are different. Yes, they have abilities that other species do not have. But being different does not make them dangerous. Jake began to present the facts he had learned. He talked about the Vorthak's 50,000 years of keeping galactic history safe. He described their scientific discoveries that had helped many species travel through space more safely. He explained how their life energy absorption was harmless and natural. Dr. Lisa Carter, our scientist, has studied Vorthak biology, Jake said. She has confirmed that their energy absorption takes only what living beings naturally give off. It is no more harmful than a plant absorbing sunlight. Jake saw some aliens nodding thoughtfully. Ambassador Kelrin talks about ancient crimes committed by some Vorthak thousands of years ago, Jake continued. But should an entire species be judged forever by the mistakes of a few? How many of our species have perfect histories? How many of us have never had members who made terrible choices? The room became very quiet. Jake could feel that he had the attention of many aliens who had not been listening before. Queen Lyrelai has attended 43 of these assemblies, Jake said, his voice growing stronger. For 43 years, she has tried to share her people's knowledge and culture. For 43 years, she's been ignored and rejected because of fear and old prejudices. Jake looked directly at Ambassador Kelrin. The real question today is not whether the Vorthak are dangerous. The real question is whether we, as a galactic community, are brave enough to move beyond our fears and prejudices. Jake talked about all the partnerships that had formed during the assembly. He described how species had learned from each other and grown stronger together. "The galaxy is vast," Jake said. "There is room for all of us, including those who are different from us. The Vorthak have spent thousands of years trying to help and protect others. Is it not time we gave them the chance to be our partners instead of our outcasts?" When Jake finished speaking, the amphitheater was completely silent. He walked back to his seat, his heart pounding. The vote was taken immediately. Each species cast one vote. Jake watched nervously as the votes were counted. The final result was close but clear. 157 species voted to maintain the Vorthak's full membership in the galactic community. 134 voted to restrict them. 12 abstained. Jake felt like he could breathe again. They had won. But something more important happened next. Queen Lyrelai stood up and asked for permission to speak. "Friends," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater, "I am grateful for your support. But I want to offer something more than just my thanks." She paused and looked around the room. "For too long, my people have been isolated and misunderstood. Today, I want to change that. I offer to open the Vorthak's historical archives to all species. I offer to share our scientific knowledge for peaceful purposes. I offer to work with anyone who wants to learn about bioenergy research." The effect was immediate. Dozens of species began talking excitedly among themselves. "I also propose," Queen Lyrelai continued, "that we establish a new tradition at these assemblies. Let us create a program where different species can learn about each other's cultures and histories. Let us replace fear with understanding." The applause started slowly with just a few species clapping, but it grew louder and louder until the entire amphitheater was filled with the sound of approval from hundreds of different beings. After the vote, many species approached Queen Lyrelei to discuss partnerships. The Etherian Council wanted access to historical archives. The Aquatic Federation was interested in bioenergy research for underwater exploration. Even some members of the Dominion Coalition quietly asked about possible cooperation. Jake found Queen Lyrelei surrounded by aliens asking questions and making offers. She looked happier than he had ever seen her. "Jake," she called out when she saw him. "Come here. I want to announce something." The crowd around her booth grew quiet. "I am pleased to announce the appointment of Jake Harrison as the first human cultural liaison to the Sanguinar Empire," Queen Lyrelei said. "He will help coordinate cultural exchanges between the Vorthak and other species." Jake was shocked. "Your Majesty, I do not know what to say." "Say yes," Queen Lyrelei said with a smile. "The galaxy needs more bridge builders like you." That evening, Jake found himself on the observation deck again with Queen Lyrelei. But this time they were not alone. Lisa was there, discussing research projects with a Vorthak scientist. Alex was talking with a Vorthak military advisor about ship defense systems. Even some aliens from other species had joined them. "You know," Queen Lyrelei said to Jake as they watched the stars, "in all my centuries, I never expected that it would be the youngest species in the galaxy that would teach the oldest one about acceptance. Maybe that is exactly why it worked." Jake said, "We humans are pretty good at not knowing when something is supposed to be impossible." Queen Lyrelei laughed. "I think I am beginning to understand why your species was accepted into the galactic community so quickly." They stood together, watching ships from dozens of species preparing to leave the station. Many of those ships now carried new partnerships and alliances that included the Vorthak. "What happens next?" Jake asked. "Next we work together," Queen Lyrelei said. "You will visit Vorthak worlds and help our peoples understand each other. I will send Vorthak representatives to human colonies to share our knowledge. And after that?" Queen Lyrelei smiled. "After that we find other species who have been ignored or misunderstood. The galaxy is full of beings who need someone to reach out to them the way you reached out to me." Jake thought about all the species he had seen at the assembly. How many of them felt like outsiders? How many had stories that no one wanted to hear? "It is a big job," he said. "Yes, but we do not have to do it alone anymore," Queen Lyrelei replied. "That is the wonderful thing about friendship. It grows." As Jake watched the stars, he thought about how much had changed in just 1 week. Queen Lyrelei was no longer standing alone at her booth. The Vorthak were no longer outcasts in the galactic community. And Jake had learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply treat someone with kindness when everyone else treats them with fear. The galaxy was vast and full of different species. There would always be misunderstandings and prejudices to overcome.